And then what I said, Shoghi Effendi endorsed what the Babis did. There, right here's where he said it. It says, "It is caused by the unconcealed determination of the dawnbreakers of a new age to proclaim fearlessly and befittingly its advent, and by no less unyielding resolve. To persuasion prove a failure to resist and defend themselves against the onslaught of malicious and unreasoning assailant. It is demonstrated beyond the shadow of a doubt with a indomitable band of 300 untrained, unequipped, yet God-intoxicated students, mostly sedentary recluses of the college and cloister, could achieve when pitted in self-defense against a trained army, well-equipped, supported by the masses of people, blessed by the clergy, headed by a prince of royal blood, and backed by the resources of the state, acting with the enthusiastic of its approval of its sovereign, and animated by the unfailing counsel of resolute and all-powerful minister. Here's what spoke to me a lot during that time. Should persuasion prove a failure to resist and defend themselves against the onslaught of malicious and unreasoning assailant? That spoke to me a lot because when I remember back to my time in Kuwait, we couldn't negotiate with ISIS. There was nothing that we could do. We had to defend ourselves against ISIS. And so when Shoghi Effendi lays out right here, says, should persuasion prove a failure to resist and defend themselves against the onslaught of malicious and unreasoning assailant? That fell into the category of what Shoghi Effendi said right there. That yes, you can defend yourself if that's what you're coming up against. And then here's another one that, another quote that spoke to me. This is from Abdul Baha, submission to righteous leaders. It is incumbent upon you to be submissive to all monarchs that are just and show your fidelity to every righteous king. Serve ye the sovereigns of the world with utmost truthfulness and loyalty. Show obedience unto them and be their well-wishers. Without their leave and permission, do not meddle with political affairs. For disloyalty to the just sovereign is disloyalty to God himself. Here's what spoke to me a lot during that time. Be submissive to all monarchs that are just and show your fidelity to every righteous king. Because ISIS was a country. They had their own government. They were minting their own currency. They had their own laws. But it's like, I could never justify having to submit to ISIS. It's like, even though as a country, it's like, why would I submit to them? So when I saw this quote from Abdul Baha here, that's what spoke to me a lot. Submit to the righteous leaders. That was another one that spoke to me a lot. Here's another one. Because it says in the Bible, surrounding the throne were 24 other thrones, and seated on them were 24 elders. They were dressed in white and had crowns of gold on their head. That's Revelation 4, verse 4. Shoghi Effendi said, regarding the 24 elders, the masters in the tablet stated that they were the Bab, the 18 letters of the living, and 5 others who will be known in the future. So far, we do not know who these 5 others are. Here's what I noticed. The 18 letters of the living are sitting up in heaven right now next to God, and half of them were killed at the Battle of Fort Tabarsi. So even though they defended themselves, they still get the prime position right next to God in heaven. That's what spoke to me a lot. That yes, you are allowed to defend yourself. Here's what the Universal House of Justice has to say. Baha'is recognize the right and duty of governments to use force for the maintenance of law and order and to protect their people. Thus, for a Baha'i, the shedding of blood for such a purpose is not necessarily essentially wrong. The Baha'i faith draws a very definite distinction between the duty of an individual to forgive and to be killed rather than to kill, and the duty of society to uphold justice. This matter is explained by Abdul Baha in some answered questions. In the present condition of the world, Baha'is try to keep themselves out of internecine conflicts that are raging among their fellow men and to avoid shedding blood in such struggles. But this does not mean that we are absolute pacifists. And so when I read this, it's like, okay, absolutely Baha'is recognize right here, recognize right and duty of governments to use force for the maintenance of law and order. So I didn't have to stand off to the side and watch that whole thing happen in Kuwait. I didn't have to tell the Kurds that, no, you're not allowed to defend yourself. So I had this from the Universal House of Justice at the Battle of Fort Tabarsi, which Shoghi Effendi endorsed, quotes from Abdul Baha and from Baha'u'llah after he began manifestations saying, yes, there will be military in place. And when I saw that, that's when I was like, okay, I can defend myself. I don't have, the Kurds are allowed to defend themselves. And that's when I decided to make the jump over to becoming a Baha'i. From Shoghi Effendi, the structure, importance, implications, benefits, and possibilities of the New World Order cannot be understood at the current time, but only through time will it become obvious. Instead, only the guiding principles underlying the New World Order can be generally outlined. Because what Shoghi Effendi did, he gave us the principles to follow, and he gave us the end destination. But the how is on us. And with the how, that's on us to figure out day by day how we're going to achieve that. Then I'll end with a quote, and then we'll come over to questions and answer. It says, peace is our profession. That's from the United States Strategic Air Command. They follow the United States Air Force. Because in the Baha'i faith, it says America has a special role in the formation of the global commonwealth and a special role in the great peace. And that's what we support here in America, global peace. And that's why I chose to wear the uniform for 12 years. And that's why I chose to volunteer for 3 deployments with the Army. So with that, we'll come over to question and answer.
Stephen, I have a question for you.
Yep.
I first wanted to commend you for your transparency. Now you became a Baha'i. We've enjoyed having you in the community. But my question was, did you ever go back to those 2 or 3 people that had said the Baha'is are pacifists and clear them up?
No, I never did. No, I never did. And I have not spoken to them since then, because I will say I was pretty angry when I saw what they were trying to tell me, and I was seeing what was happening in there. And I will say I was not very nice about it to them. Looking back, I probably should have been a little bit nicer in how I said it. But no, because I only ever knew them online, and they deleted their accounts afterwards. And so I was actually never able to tell them what happened.
There's some comments in the chat box praising your presentation. The one I want to read to you says, I commend you on your search after truth. Too often we Baha'is do not take the time to go to the sacred writings which form the basis of our teachings. And at this time also, if anyone would like to ask a question, you should be able to unmute yourself. If you don't want to ask the question, you can type it in the chat box and I will read it. You can also raise your hand in the participant box. There's also a comment here. I'm glad that you persisted in investigating the truth for yourself. I'm sorry that you were initially misled regarding the Baha'i teachings on pacifism and self-defense. I love the fact that Baha'u'llah introduced the concept of collective security almost a century before the United States incorporated it into its charter. Oh, and I think Mitch Jacobson has his hand raised. Mitch, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, Stephen, a wonderful presentation, thank you. And I think the importance is to emphasize what other people have said, the search for our own responsibility to search for truth. So my question is, these 3 individuals who told you that Baha'is must be pacifists, did they provide you with, other than their personal opinions, did they show you, like you do, look at any of the guidance, any writings? Because that, when I studied the faith, was also a question for me. And my understanding, which also may not be correct, is that holy war is forbidden, but that we are not strictly pacifists. And I have never seen any quotes that even imply that. So I just wonder if the 3 individuals backed up their opinion with any writings.
No, before I spoke to the Northern Virginia Baha'i Center, that was just an in-person conversation, so they didn't have anything on hand to back it up with. But what they did tell me is like, no, if you want to support peace, you have to be a pacifist. That was that's what they told me initially. And the other 2, they provided scripture, but I don't specifically remember what they provided. But I will be honest about the girl who provided that to me. She never even went to a Baha'i Center, so I would say she really didn't know scripture herself very well. So, but that was so no, I don't specifically remember. I will say that.
Stephen, I also want to thank you. This was a great talk. Appreciate it. This is wonderful life story. Just wanted to add that, you know, the online, the BahaiTeachings.org has a couple of articles about whether Baha'is are pacifists or not. Just looking at one of them, this is a message from the Universal House of Justice on September 11, 84. Just wanted to share with you and the friends. And it's quoted from that house message that it says, it is true that Baha'is are not pacifists, since we uphold the use of force in the service of justice and upholding the law. But we do not believe that war is very necessary, and its abolition is one of the essential purpose and brightest promises of Baha'u'llah's revelation. His specific command to the kings of the earth is, should anyone among you take up arms against another, rise you all against him, for this is not but manifest justice, and this is the collective security that you talked about. So I think there is enough guidance from the house that clarifies our position as Baha'is.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because it's like, yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely support peace. Absolutely, we should negotiate. But if someone just chooses that they're not going to do that, like what ISIS was doing, which is what I personally had to deal with, it's like I couldn't see any other way other than defending ourselves. There was no other path at that point. And so when I had to face that choice, I'm like, I don't see how I can go along with this when I am in a position to do something to stop it.
Yeah, but Emmanuel has his hand up. Emmanuel, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I mean, it's a wonderful example how it's important really to really comply with that individual investigation of the truth. But about the issue of war and self-defense, I think also the Baha'i scriptures clearly say that we have to keep out of any partisan politics. And many times, unfortunately, those issues of war and self-defense are really mingled with really partisan politics. And so I think as Baha'is, we have to be extremely cautious when, I mean, those issues of war, self-defense come up, if there is no partisan politics involved. That's what I wanted to mention.
Yeah, absolutely, we should avoid partisan politics. But that's also why I put that quote from Abdul Baha in there, submit to righteous leaders. Because ISIS, I mean, I thought it was a little bit over the top, like posting all those pictures at the start, but I wanted everyone to see exactly what I was talking about. And I was thinking about not doing it, and then I'm like, people need to see exactly what I'm talking about and what led me to do what I did. Because I know there's going to be a lot of other people, like in the military, who would love to be Baha'is. But if that's what they're being told, then if this is what I ran into, I know a lot of them will not take a second look. Like I was willing to take a second look. So that's why I ended up doing that.
Hey, Nina Nur has another question. Can you unmute yourself, Nina?
No, I asked. I
will ask a question. So Stephen, just wanted to ask you that I know you have a good command of Farsi, also Persian. Did that help in any way in you becoming a Baha'i? And I would like you to do the same program in Farsi.
Farsi man khub neist. No, but I would say Farsi itself did not, but I loved studying other cultures and other religions. So when I was doing this, I learned Farsi along the way. And I also, when I got back from Kuwait, I did learn some Kurdish. So did the languages itself help me out becoming a Baha'i? No, not as much. But I learned a lot about other cultures, which is where I started thinking, I don't think everyone in the world is going to hell for eternity, like I've been taught my whole life. So that's kind of where I started to come up, just kind of, not say come around the corner, but that's when I kind of started to doubt what I was being taught. Then I started looking at other religions.
That's interesting. And you studied in university Shia Islam, right?
Yes.
So did that have anything to do with you becoming a Baha'i?
Shia Islam itself, no, it did not, because I didn't even realize really what the connection was between the Shiites and Baha'is until after I became Baha'i. No, really what stuck me about the Baha'is was the fact that I'm allowed to question things, have the independent search for the truth. The harmony of science and religion was a really big one for me, because I don't have to choose between the Baha'is between God or science and religion. I can have both. I would say when I started learning about the other cultures and religions, I say those are really the major ones that stuck. And I was going to become a Baha'i much earlier until he came back and told me that, oh, no. If you become a Baha'i, you can't do anything to ISIS. And it's like, wait, what do you mean I can't? And that's when I realized, like, nope, not doing this. I'm going to do my part to stop this.
Okay, there's also a question in the chat box. What caused you to look at other religions besides Christianity?
I've always had a passion for studying other religions. It's just one of my passions in life. I can't explain the passion very well, but it's like, okay, I got that minor in religious studies, did the biblical archaeology classes. I took a class over my African religion history, and it was just my passion in life. I don't know where that passion came from, but I do know my sister has a lot of the same passions in life, so maybe it's just a genetic passion.
Hey, friends, we still have time for more questions and comments.
I'm going to ask Stephen one more question. Stephen, could you explain a little bit about your discussions that you've had with your dad? I know that he's a very true Christian.
Well, a lot of the discussions my dad and I have had with each other is about comparing notes on the Bible. Because I said in the beginning, he's a very, very devout Christian. And so it's just a lot of the discussions kind of went over ranging over biblical prophecy. Because I built that presentation showing how Bahai is returned to Christ. So a lot of it was like him and I like comparing notes on this. And that's really how most of them have gone so far. And lately they have I'd say about once a month now we'll have a brief discussion with each other. But right now it's just, he has his beliefs, which I absolutely respect. And I have my beliefs and he absolutely respects them now. So right now that's the point where we're at.
And there's another question in the chat. How long did it take for you to accept the faith?
I first heard about it in 2010, but I really didn't start researching it until about 2013. So I declared last year. So it took 7 full years for me to research the faith, but there was that 5-year break in there that is just absolutely, I was like, no, I'm not going along with this, because I could never justify to myself standing off to the side doing nothing while everything was going on in Iraq. That's what it was, and I could never justify it. So it took me about 2 years of researching it, but then those extra 5 years is just like, you know what, maybe I'll give it another look.
Okay, and Roya has her hand up. Roya, you can unmute yourself and comment.
Aloha, dear friends. Thank you very much. That's wonderful talk. And just my question is, can you remember, Stephen, that when was the first time ever you learned about concept of God? And in your growing up study and the research, what is the difference between Eastern God versus Western God?
The first time I was always raised in the church, so there's a God is something that I was brought up very, very early on in my life. So I always grew up believing in a God. So that's one thing I really never doubted. I never doubted that. I see the difference between Eastern and Western religion, because right now I'd say it's kind of, what are the differences between Islam and Islam and Christianity? Because other than what you see on that's a very difficult question, not gonna lie. I would say my Islam is just much more, I would say, a little more collectivist focused, more focused on the nation, because they often refer to themselves as the Nation of Islam. And they got the Sharia law, so it's more of a way of life. Christianity is just very much more individually focused. They don't got that Christian law, or most of them don't. But it's just, I say it's more of a focus on the individual versus more focused on the group. I'd say that's the biggest difference.
Thank you very much.
Would anyone else like to comment or ask a question?
I just have a question, Mahin. Stephen, welcome to the Baha'i world. And I personally am very proud of you.
Thank you very much.
I was wondering, now that you have joined Baha'i faith, what is your plans with all the experiences that you have had in the past as far as serving the world?
Right now, I just this is always kind of a story I've kind of held inside myself a lot, because it's like a story I've always wanted to tell. But I decided that, you know, I'm going to tell just here's my story, here's what happened. And now that I've told the story, I think what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to use it as a story to like reach out to other people. Because I know like a lot of people in the military would be like, well, they're going to be like me. A lot of them are being told that you have to be a pacifist. And they're like, no, I did my research and saying, no, you do not have to do this. Because like right now, in the Baha'i faith, it says that America will play a very special role in the great peace that is to come. So this is something that I can use to like reach out to fellow Americans. Like, no, this is what the faith says about America. Because all the values we have here as Americans are the same values that the Baha'i faith teaches. So they are natural fits for each other. So what I'm going to do is just kind of use it to kind of start just reaching out to the local population. And one of the things I want to do is start really focusing on the harmony of science and religion. Because like for a lot of Christians or people who say like, I don't see how we have to pick between science or religion. But like, no, you don't have to pick between science or religion. You are allowed to pick them both. And so that's really what I'm going to be focused on in the future. And where that takes me exactly in the world, I don't know.
Thank you. We are proud of you.
Thank you very much.
Roya, did you have another question or?
Yes, please, if I have permission.
Yes.
I would love to hear from Stephen that what would be the best approach for a Baha'i to give the message to the rest of the world. I wanted to hear from someone that was not Baha'i before, that what would be the best approach? Where should we start? What kind of sentence and what kind of principle to give the message to somebody that wants to hear about Baha'i faith? If you advise us what would be the best approach, I appreciate, because, you know, in my teachings, when I start from Jesus or return of Jesus, I see people run away, just not staying even one more minute. If I start from principle like Black Lives Matter, started from approach of, you know, women's rights, any of the social issues, they can stay longer and they would be interested to hear more. So I just wanted, from his personal experience, how would we be more helpful, more efficient and effective to give the message, please?
I would say something about giving the message. It's just living by the principles of Baha'u'llah. Be loving, be accepting, and just be friendly to them. And then you can casually mention like, hey, look, religiously I'm Baha'i. And when they are ready to hear the Baha'i faith, they will ask you about it. And then one that would be, especially as I said, for like a lot of former Christians, a lot of them would be like the harmony of science and religion. I think that'd be a really big one for a lot of them because they don't, as I said before, they don't have to pick between either one. That was a really, really big sticking point for me. Then yeah, as I said, maybe if like someone's a minority, just say, hey, look, the unity between the races, that's another big one. But for each individual person, it's going to have an individual answer. Because if you notice in my presentation, I didn't have unity on there because even though I absolutely believe in unity and I absolutely believe in equality, that was really not one of the big sticking points for me. It was the harmony of science and religion, the independent search for the truth, and you are allowed to leave the faith at 15 years old. Those are really the big sticking points for me. For each individual person, it's going to be different. So the best thing you can do is just show the love of Baha'u'llah, and when they are ready, they will ask about it. And that's the best way to approach them.
Thank you.
Emmanuel, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yes, actually, I wanted to respond to Roya's question. I mean, I'm myself a pretty new Baha'i. I became a Baha'i only about 5 years ago. And I mean, I'm confronted to that question raised by Roya all the time when I'm in touch with non-Baha'is. I mean, how I can present the faith. And I think today, I mean, most of the non-Baha'i community is totally lost when they face all the issues that our society faces. And they don't know the answers. They don't know how to tackle all those issues. And at the same time, we are in a society which is extremely divided, not only in the US, but everywhere. And people realize that they don't want the society to be divided. And so what I try to tell to those people I encounter is that as Baha'is, we have solutions to all those problems. A few weeks ago, I had a conversation with a Baha'i friend who has some important function within the Baha'i faith in our region. And she was telling us that, I mean, as Roya was saying, when we talk religion, people don't want to listen to us. And she was telling us that now it has reached a point that she's afraid of talking religion, and that person is not a simple Baha'i. I mean, she holds functions in the Baha'i community. And so I was telling her, well, maybe you should tell those people you encounter to explain to them what's the true meaning of the word religion, because the word religion has been corrupted by all the traditional religions, because I mean, thirst for power or for money, all kinds of things which have nothing to do with religion. And when you search the real root of the word religion in the Latin language, it means to build bridges. So really, when we talk religion, I mean, we have to have in mind that we talk to build bridges between people. So maybe that's a way to introduce our discourse when we talk with non-Baha'is.
Yes, thank you. It's very important.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Also in the comment box, Stephen has a 3-part talk on how Baha'u'llah is the return of Christ. It's on the Northern Virginia Baha'i Center YouTube channel. That is not the same as the Sunday program channel. Stephen, maybe if you want to tell them how to get to that. I didn't know there was a YouTube channel for the Baha'i Center, so.
Yeah, I know there's a YouTube channel. I don't remember off the top of my head what it was called. I think Payman on? I think he knows. If I can throw that over to him real quick.
Yeah, maybe Payman, if you could type the YouTube address.
Yes, I put it in the comments. If you just search Northern Virginia Baha'i Center, the channel comes up. It has some of the past Holy Day programs, and it also has Stephen's talks. It was how Baha'u'llah is the return of Christ, and he did a Saturday workshop a few months back, and he did a lot of research, and it was a wonderful series if anyone is interested.
Thank you very much. I was just making sure you're paying attention.
Absolutely.
Okay, we are at 11:55. If anyone else has a comment or a question.
I have one last question for Stephen. Stephen, do you process information differently now that you're a Baha'i?
I would say the biggest one is I'm not looking at people with such judgmental attitudes. Because when I was a Christian, I was like, oh, look, they're not my denomination. They're not making it to heaven. Look, they're not living their lives properly. Now it's just like, I'm not coming from a place of just judgmentalness and anger. It's just more, I'm coming more from a place of like loving and accepting. So I'd say that's the biggest difference in how I'm processing things.
Yes, and Stephen, please look in the chat box. There are quite a few people praising your talk. So I want to make sure you don't miss that. We have, it's amazing how you presented in an orderly manner the most important part of history. Absolutely brilliant presentation. I'm glad that you persisted in investigating the truth for yourself. I'm sorry that you were initially misled regarding the Baha'i teachings on pacifism and self-defense. I might have read that one earlier. So, okay, at this point, if there are no other questions or comments, we will proceed with our closing prayer. Stephen especially requested the prayer for America as a closing prayer. Do we have that ready to go, Chinichi? Okay, we need sound. Chinichi, there's no sound on the prayer. Yeah. I think we are going to try again.
Oh, thou kind Lord, this gathering is turning to thee. These hearts are radiant with thy love. These minds and spirits are exhilarated by the message of thy glad tidings, O God. And this American democracy become glorious in spiritual degrees, even as it has aspired to material degrees, and render this just government victorious. Confirm this revered nation to upraise the standard of the oneness of humanity, to promulgate the most great peace, to become thereby most glorious and praiseworthy among all the nations of the world. This American nation is worthy of thy favors and is deserving of thy mercy. Make it precious and near to thee, through thy bounty and bestow.
Thank you, everyone. We hope you will join us again next Sunday at 10:30. It's the same Zoom address and password. The speaker will be Della Marcus, and her topic is the life of Queen Marie. Many of you may know that Queen Marie of Romania was the granddaughter, I believe, of Queen Victoria and became a Baha'i. So we hope to see everyone next week. Have a good week.